Hi everyone, it's Rax. Blizzard has just announced all 32 of the Malignant hearts that you can hunt for in Season 1 to create some new build combinations to hopefully make you a lot stronger. Let's go over them and give you a little bit of input on where they might be helpful. Orange is offensive, blue is defensive, pink is utility, and wrathful is black, and I assume those are the ones that can go into any colored socket. So remember, you're not only looking for the specific jewelry pieces, but you're looking for the right colored sockets so you can get the right gems in there. There are 3 of each for the different 4 categories that are general, that apply to any class, and then there's 1 for each class specifically for each of the categories. We'll go over all of them. The first one, critically strikes electrically charge the enemy for 2.5 seconds. They cause lightning to arc between them and any other charged enemies, and they deal extra lightning damage. Well, obviously, what is going to matter here is how high does that lightning damage build up, but if it's very strong, let's say, then it might be very good for AoE farming. Every 5 seconds above 60% life, your core skills cost you life instead of your primary resource, and skills that consume life deal 20% increased damage. Well, obviously, this would be very nice for softcore builds because they don't care about spending life, and might be a nice way to get some increased damage. And another way to think about it is if one of your main abilities is costing life instead of resources, that's an opportunity for you to build your resources up. Then it's going to solve some of your mana issues. Gain 60% critical strike damage, but your non-critical strikes do 15% less damage. So that would be very good, obviously, for a build based upon crit where you have a lot of critical strike chance. On the defensive side, you gain 10% barrier generation. You heal 3 to 7 life per second while you have an active barrier. Obviously, that heal is going to go up. Might be very good for sorcerers. 20% of incoming damage is instead suppressed. When you use a defensive, subterfuge, or macabre skill, all suppressed damage is amplified by 250% and explodes, dealing up to 2,000 fire damage to nearby enemies. I mean, this is appropriately titled Revenge. I actually like this one a lot. It takes 20% of your incoming damage, and you use a defensive skill to blow it up. I mean, that's not only great survivability, but it also turns into an offensive power. That one might be really, really good. You become immune for 4 seconds after you lose more than 20% of your life in a single hit. It occurs about once every 2 minutes. Might be good for Uber Lilith. Not bad. Resource draining effects are 50% less effective. So I'm guessing this is things like resource burn on a Nightmare Dungeon Sigil, or maybe it's like channeled skills, like Whirlwind, for example. And you gain 8% increased resource generation. Okay, that's a desirable stat on almost every build. Deal 680 fire damage to surrounding enemies whenever a crowd control effect is removed from you. This does not seem good. So I can't see why you don't want crowd control effects to stack on you at all. I guess you could purposely get crowd controlled and then break out of it, but this one doesn't seem great to me. After spending 200 of your primary resource, your next attack stuns enemies for 2 seconds. This might be very good, not only for survivability, obviously for stunning them and for building stagger, but also because maybe you do more damage to stunned enemies or crowd controlled enemies. Could be pretty good. And now we look at the superpowers. Cycle through a bonus every 20 kills, 20% attack speed. Okay, it's pretty good. This is the one I like the most. Core and basic skills have a 15% chance to fully restore your primary resource. I wish it was just that. That would help you with your resources so much. The last one, every 21 seconds, gain a barrier. I wish it was just the middle one, but all of those are probably pretty good. Creeping Death. Your damage over time effects are increased by 40% for every crowd control effect on the target. Unstoppable monsters and staggered bosses instead take 130% increased damage over time. Damage from your damage over time. So this is things like Poison Imbue. It'd be crazy on Uber Lilith, especially because the patch notes didn't nerf Bursting Venoms. The Barber. Critical strikes and all subsequent damage within 4 seconds is absorbed by your target. Then the absorbed damage erupts into surrounding enemies. Stored damage is increased by 10% per second. If the damage from the explosion hits the initial target as well, this will be incredible. And I don't know how it can't, because it says every critical strike. So I don't think they can make a power where every critical strike just doesn't work on the main target. So if you get one for 4 seconds, it builds up damage, it gets up 40%, and then it explodes? That that to me sounds pretty good. I guess the only problem with that is there's a little bit of a delay in the damage. That might be the problem, but on any really tough content or a long boss fight, should be quite good as long as it hits the initial target. Barbarians. Focused Rage. After spending 60 Fury within 2 seconds, I mean, with all the resource cost reduction, that might not be the easiest task. You got to be like attacking. Your next non-basic skill's critical strike chances increased by 30%. Okay. I mean, 30% crit chance is nice. It's all right. While below 60% life, you receive 60% more healing. Okay, it's going to help you with your sustain a bit. Sure, why not? So far, these two haven't really moved me. Your skills have a 30% chance to knock down all enemies for 1.25 seconds when that skill's attack speed is higher than 20%. 30% chance to knock down all enemies. Suppose if you can get your attack speed high enough, this might be really good. Maybe you're just crowd controlling them all the time. Might be good for staggering on bosses. The last one, incoming damage has a 15% chance of being ignored and instead heals you. This would be godly for Uber Lilith. If you get hit by a wave and instead you don't take any damage and instead it just heals you, that would be incredible. You gotta be honest, not super excited about the barbarian powers here. Those don't seem too crazy to me. The Moon Rage. Kills have a 5% chance to summon a wolf companion to your side for 30 seconds. And you gain +3 to wolves. So everything that I've ever seen from Companion Druid, especially for wolves, is they are terrible. Maybe all of these buffs are going to make them worthwhile. You never know. I mean, I'll take a bunch of wolves to my side. I'll try to get like, I don't know, rank 12 wolves and see how they go. That might work, but probably not. When there are 8 to 13 close enemies, that's a lot. Automatically cast Cyclone Armor. This cannot occur more than once every 20 seconds. Seems like a lot. You got to get a lot of close enemies there. I guess you're just going to be diving in and pulling in everybody. Up to 30 to 50 distance enemies are pulled toward you when you have an ultimate skill active. Well, most of the druid builds take Grizzly Rage, so that might be really good. You pull them all to you and Tornado or Pulverize is going to detonate them. That one seems very good. When you are hit with a stun, freeze, or knockdown effect, there's a 60% chance to automatically activate Grizzly Rage for 3 seconds. This is what's going to save you from the Grizzly Rage nerf in the patch notes. Whenever you're hit by one of these crowd control effects, it has a 60% chance to just activate Grizzly Rage for you. When Grizzly Rage, when it's activated, gives you 6 seconds of Unstoppable. So I guess this is the way that you remedy those. So these two seem very, very good. Excuse me. Necromancer. Walking near a corpse automatically activates an equipped corpse skill every second, dealing 30% reduced damage. That actually seems pretty good. If you're mowing stuff down and all you have to do is walk by the corpse and it's going to start detonating on whatever it is, corpse explosion or whatever it is you're going to be using, I will take the quality of life of it just going everywhere for the damage penalty. That seems pretty good to me. When there are at least 5 enemies near you, you gain an aura that automatically curses enemies. Again, very big quality of life. Auto corpse explosion, auto cursing. I like this. It's going to make Necro more comfortable to play. The lucky hit has up to a 10% chance of inflicting fear for 2.5 seconds. Feared enemies are chilled for 20% every second. Okay, so they're feared for 2.5. And they get a ton of chill on them, so it's a lot of crowd control, and it's on lucky hit. Okay, I'm sure there's going to be some uses for that. I like the first two better, but maybe that's better than I'm thinking. The Great Feast. Each minion drains 2 essence per second, but they deal 75% increased damage. Or, if you have no minions, the bonus applies to you and drains 5 essence per second. So either way, whether you want to play minion necro or not, as long as you can figure out a way to really pump up your essence and keep generating it, seems like you can get a tremendous damage increase. So I really like these Necro powers. At least 3 of them seem really good to me. So this is some good work by the Necro team. Rogue. Lucky hit, you have a 20% chance to launch 3 stun grenades that deal damage and stun them for half a second. I would be way more excited for this if it wasn't lucky hit and then a 20% chance. But the stuns are going to help keep the rogue alive, so maybe we take this. Trickery. When you use a subterfuge skill, leave behind a shadow decoy that taunts enemies. Then the shadow decoy trap explodes after 6 seconds, doing shadow damage cannot occur more than once every 5 seconds. So the problem for me here is it explodes after 6 seconds. That's a very, very long time. You don't want your fights, like your fights, to be lasting 6 seconds. So that seems a little slow to me. But maybe we'll take the taunt anyway, just to stay alive. Lucky hit, 40% chance for your cutthroat skills to slow. That'll be really good for applying crowd control. Or your marksman skills to knock back enemies. Again, it's this lucky hit and then very rare chance. Not my favorite, but at least we'll be applying some crowd controls. And the final one, the Vile Apothecary. Your attacks have a 15% chance to apply all imbuement effects at 50% of their normal potency. I see, I like this way more. Now, maybe we can just very quickly go in and take Shadow Imbue with the upgrades, Poison Imbue with the upgrades, Cold Imbue with the update, or with the upgrades, and then we just keep proccing it all the time. So maybe we stack attack speed to get a lot of attacks off to keep proccing all the imbuement effects. Now, this one seems fantastic, so maybe I can forgive the other ones in favor of this one. Sorcerer, Talrasha. For each unique element you deal with, you deal 7 to 12% increased damage for 3 seconds. This seems very strong, because I'm hoping that the Firebolt enchantment, which causes burning, counts as fire damage. So you get fire damage for free. Then if you're an Ice Shard sorcerer, you get ice for free. Then all you have to do is figure out how to get some lightning damage in there. Maybe every once in a while you throw an Arc Lash. And there you go. You got all 3. Then magically you've got 36% increased damage. Remember, it lasts for 10 seconds, so you don't have to throw that last element very often. So that's pretty nice. After taking elemental damage, you gain 40% resistance to that element for 5 seconds. It is nice that it targets the damage that's currently hitting you, but I'm not under the impression that resist all is very good. I mean, they already said that it wasn't very good, and they're going to buff it. They didn't buff it in this patch, so not too sure how powerful this is. While you are afflicted with a crowd control effect, there's a 40% chance that the same enemy and enemies around you are also afflicted with that same effect for 3 seconds. This might save you. 40% chance when you get hit by a crowd control to hit the whole room with the same crowd control. This is going to save you sometimes, that's for sure. Then Omni Power. Core skills that launch a projectile consume all of your mana. For every 45 to 35 extra mana consumed, you launch an additional projectile, and the damage is increased by 3 to 5%. Okay, now we looked at this for a while, and there's several ways that this could go. So let's just imagine one way. Remember, we're not trying to do any fancy math here. We don't know how the mechanics work. Let's say you got, let's just make some up. Say you got 150 mana, okay? And I'm just making up numbers. Don't go in the game and look up the numbers. I'm just making up numbers. Say Frozen Orb costs 40 mana. Okay, Frozen Orb. Okay, there we go. All right, so we cast it, and let's say we don't have any reduced, energy, none of that. Forget all of that. It just costs 40 mana. Okay, so we throw a Frozen Orb. We're down to 110 mana. And now it deletes our mana, and it says for every 35 that we cast, it throws an additional projectile, and then it does something like 3 to 5% increased damage. I'm not sure if the 3 to 5% increases or not. So 35 times 3 is 105, so I'd get 3 of these. So I'd throw a Frozen Orb, and then it would throw 3 more Frozen Orbs, and then they would all do, or just the other ones do, would either do 5% more damage each, or maybe this gets multiplied by 3 too. It'd be 15% damage each. If you throw 1, and instead you get 4, that is, I mean, I think this is the most powerful power that there is, if I'm reading it correctly. You launch core skills that launch a projectile consume all of your mana. So 40 mana Frozen Orb. For every 35 extra mana consumed, so if you had 150, go down to 110, 3 times 35 is 70 plus 35, which is 105, so you get 3 of them, you launch an additional projectile. So it's 3 extra Frozen Orbs, and I don't know if this number gets multiplied by 3 too, and maybe it does 15% more damage. If that's how it works, or if it's anything close to that, as long as we get the extra projectiles, this is going to be crazy. Again, the problem is it might be a little bit slow. You got to find out ways to build up your mana very quickly. But yeah, you just gather up the whole room, you rain it in, you throw a Frozen Orb or a Fireball or Chain Lightning or whatever counts. This could be really good, depending upon the mechanics of it, which nobody has tested, so nobody knows. Could be really solid. And remember, if your class didn't have any, like a ton of good ones, you can also cherry pick out of the general ones. And I mean, worst case scenario, if you don't like any of them, you can just throw a skull into your gear. Overall, I do think these are pretty powerful. I don't know if they are game breaking, as they said on the podcast. Looks like they did put some effort into these, and hopefully it'll be enough to counterbalance all the nerfs in the patch notes. So, I'm going to be starting Rogue on the season, and so I'm really looking forward to this, applying all of the imbuements, even at 50% of their normal potency. The freezy stuff, the poison stuff, and the shadow stuff just being sprayed all the time. That sounds very fun to me. So that's what I'm going to be going for. Anyway, here are all the powers for Season 1. What class are you going to go with, and what do you think is the best combination of powers for you guys? What are you going to use? Anyway, many more videos are coming. I've got the Nightmare Dungeon tier list. I'll have it done before Season 1 is up, as promised, and I'll have the class tier list for you as well. I'll be blasting on Rogue, going hardcore solo self-found in the race, and we'll see how we can do. I'm honestly expecting to die now with how much they've nerfed the defense. It'll just be a matter of how far can I get before I eventually meet my maker. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thank you.